Is this wall evidence of a lost civilization in North America?
There's an ancient wall in Montana that some people have tried to say is a natural rock formation.
Montana is known for its stunning wild green forests and towering mountain peaks that reach up to the sky. But even though people have seen a lot of it, hidden under thick forests and quiet rocks lies the mysterious Sage Wall. This huge structure, made of giant stones, tells the story of old civilizations and technology that seems way ahead of what we know today. Who built it, and how could they have achieved this? Could this be the clue to understanding an ancient civilization that was more advanced than we ever thought? Join us as we unveil the prehistoric megastructure discovered in Montana. Discovery and initial observations. The Sage Wall is hidden in the mountains, yet it has found a way to give us a peek into its forgotten past and a total rethink of what we know about ancient building techniques. Christopher Borton and Linda Welsh never thought that clearing land would lead to something amazing. As they carefully cleared away fallen trees and thick bushes on their mountain land, nature slowly revealed a huge structure that would soon grab the attention of researchers and explorers from all over the world. The wall stands tall and impressive, made of large granite blocks placed so perfectly that it seems impossible for nature to have created them. The Sage Wall is a huge structure that leaves everyone amazed. It stretches 275 feet long and stands 25 feet tall, with some stones weighing as much as 91 tons. Even more surprising, researchers believe the wall continues another 15 feet underground, hiding even more of its secrets. What makes this wall so special is its design. These aren't just random rocks from the mountains. Each granite block looks like it was carefully shaped and placed to fit together like a giant puzzle. The stones are packed so tightly that you can't even slide a piece of paper between them. This raised big questions. How did ancient people, without any modern tools or machines, cut and move stones this huge? How did they fit them together so perfectly? It showed that whoever built this wall had knowledge and skills way beyond what we usually think people had thousands of years ago. The Sage Wall wasn't just a pile of rocks. It was proof of an ancient world that still has a lot to teach us about how people lived and worked long ago. The wall's location made it even more interesting. It was hidden by thick plants and trees for maybe thousands of years, untouched and unknown. The wall was protected by layers of fallen trees and dense mountain plants. The area was so remote and hard to reach that very few people had ever traveled to this part of the mountain. Geologists were especially curious about how the wall was built. Granite, by nature, doesn't usually split into perfect right angles or make perfectly straight lines. This strange feature made people think something special might have happened when the wall was built. The environment around the wall gave more clues about its mystery. Montana's tough land, with its steep mountains and thick forests, helped keep this possible archaeological wonder hidden for many generations. The dense plants on the mountain acted like a natural shield, keeping the wall secret from anyone who might have passed by. The climate and natural conditions in this area helped keep the structure in good shape. The steady temperature, little human activity, and the thick forest cover created perfect conditions for the wall to stay preserved. Every fallen tree and layer of moss helped protect the wall's secrets. Local surveys later showed that the area around the Sage Wall had many minerals, making the wall even more interesting. The place was also between big glacial zones from the last ice age, which made people think the wall might have had a purpose beyond just being a cool structure. As news spread about this amazing discovery, researchers, archaeologists, and curious explorers started asking big questions. Who could have built such a perfect structure? What tools or technology did they have to make something so impressive? And maybe most importantly, what stories were hidden inside these old stone blocks? As people began to discover the mystery of the wall, its special design attracted researchers. Architectural characteristics. The Sage Wall was like a geological puzzle that didn't make sense in a normal way. Its design showed careful work and skill. Unlike regular rock formations, these granite blocks were arranged with such exactness that experts couldn't figure out how it was done. The wall stretched an impressive 275 feet and showed a level of engineering that seemed impossible for its time. Each stone block looked carefully chosen and placed, fitting together like a complicated three-dimensional puzzle. The blocks weren't just stacked, they were strategically interlocked, with each piece supporting and complementing its neighbor. Geologists quickly noticed something very strange about the Sage Wall. The granite blocks didn't act like regular natural stone. Granite is usually hard and breaks into uneven, random shapes. But the blocks in this wall had nearly perfect 90-degree corners and straight edges. These features didn't happen by chance, they showed that someone had carefully shaped the stones on purpose. The design of the wall was much more complicated than just stacking stones. Researchers saw that each block seemed to be cut to fit perfectly with the ones next to it.
Ends midway here, and each point, and it's kind of these V shapes.
This wasn't just rough work. The precision suggested that much more advanced methods were used, far beyond what simple tools could do. To make it even more amazing, some of the stones weighed up to 91 tons, a size so huge that even modern construction equipment would have trouble moving and placing them with such accuracy. Creating something like this raises some big questions. How did ancient builders move and shape these giant stones so precisely? What tools or methods could they have used to make such straight lines and perfect corners? The skill needed to build this wall suggests knowledge that doesn't seem possible for that time. When experts compared the Sage Wall to other ancient structures around the world, they found some surprising similarities. The careful design and precision of the stonework at the Sage Wall were a lot like the ones found in places like Peru and Egypt. In Peru, there are ancient stone structures with stones that fit together perfectly, just like the Sage Wall. Similarly, the careful design of the Great Pyramids in Egypt looked a lot like the planning that went into the Sage Wall. These similarities made experts think that the people who built the Sage Wall weren't working alone. The way the stones were cut and how they were placed together looked a lot like the buildings in other parts of the world. This led to an interesting idea. Maybe ancient civilizations around the world were more connected than we thought. Instead of separate groups coming up with their own ways of building, it's possible they all shared the same knowledge. This could explain why so many ancient structures look so similar. This idea of a global architectural language suggests that prehistoric people might have communicated or shared ideas long before history was written down. The advanced engineering skills they had show that early humans might have been much more sophisticated than we ever imagined. The idea that ancient cultures shared advanced knowledge makes us wonder about how connected they might have been. Did they have trade routes or ways of sharing information that we still do not know about? Or maybe they learned from some shared but forgotten source of knowledge. The similarities between the Sage Wall and other huge stone structures around the world make it seem like our ancestors were a lot smarter than we usually think. The way the wall was built shows it was not just put together randomly. Every stone looks like it was placed on purpose, making a structure that is both strong and beautiful.
Like rope fence down here, they just don't want people pulling on the wall or touching it.
The way the huge granite blocks fit together so perfectly shows a level of planning and skill that is hard to believe for the time it was made. As researchers kept studying the wall, they started to notice that the surface was telling a story much more complicated than just stone and structure. The wall had strange marks and features that couldn't be easily explained, adding to its mystery. Surface anomalies and archaeological markers. The Sage Wall was more than a simple stack of stones. It looked like a kind of ancient message, holding secrets beyond just its stone and shape. The granite surface had strange marks, patterns, symbols, and lines that made people ask a lot of questions. What were these marks for? Were they part of a language, a map, or something else?
They have these large granite blocks, and then they put these depressions in it, and people would
These carvings were unlike anything experts had seen before. They seemed to show skills and knowledge that were way ahead of their time. The exactness of the markings and what they might mean confused researchers, and some wondered if they were a way of communicating or even linked to important events in the sky. This discovery made the wall even more mysterious, attracting experts from all over the world to try to figure out its purpose and what messages it might hold. Spread across the stones of the Sage Wall were peculiar knobs, some no bigger than a pebble, others as large as a fist, that left experts puzzled. These marks weren't random or caused by weather. They seemed to be placed on purpose, creating a pattern that suggested a very careful design. To make it even more interesting, archaeologists found similar knobs on ancient stone structures all around the world. These included the huge stone platforms in Peru and the grand temples in Egypt, which made people think that different civilizations might have shared knowledge or learned similar things. Along with the knobs, the wall had small bowl-shaped dips carved into it. These cup marks formed a clear pattern that looked like it had a purpose, not just for decoration.
And it's very similar to a lot of stones that you see around the world at ancient sites where they
Similar cup marks have been found in other ancient sites, and they are often linked to things like grinding tools, tracking the stars, or even sending secret messages. The way these marks were placed led to many ideas. Were they used to line up with the stars? Maybe they were part of a system for ancient communication, or tools for religious ceremonies. No matter the reason, the way the marks were made showed a level of skill and knowledge that made experts rethink what we know about ancient cultures. Carved channels and strange grooves made the mystery even deeper. Some stones had detailed cuts with smooth, straight lines that looked like they were made on purpose, not by nature. One stone even looked a lot like carvings found in Karnak, Egypt, with square cuts, grooves, and round impressions. The surface of the Sage Wall showed that the people who built it were more advanced than we usually think ancient civilizations were. Smooth chutes ran down the mountainside, so polished they almost looked like modern concrete. These channels didn't happen naturally. It seemed like they were carefully designed, probably as part of a system to manage water. The design showed the builders had a strong understanding of how water works, along with the tools to shape their surroundings in very smart ways. What made these features so special was how similar they were to others found in different parts of the world. Similar channels and smooth grooves have been found in places as far apart as New Zealand and South America. It was like ancient builders across the globe were using the same style and ideas. This connection raised big questions for researchers. How could ancient cultures, separated by huge oceans and continents, come up with such similar ways of building? Did they share knowledge somehow, or could this point to a lost civilization that influenced people everywhere? These questions turned the Sage Wall into more than just an amazing sight. It became an important clue in a much bigger mystery about the skills and knowledge of our ancestors. As the strange marks on the surface of the Sage Wall kept puzzling everyone, a group of determined scientists got ready to uncover its biggest mysteries. They brought the most advanced tools and a strong curiosity to learn more about our ancient history. Scientific investigations. The study of the Sage Wall turned a quiet mystery in the wilderness into an exciting archaeological adventure. Christopher Borton and Linda Welsh, the landowners, knew they needed real proof, not just guesses, to figure out the wall's secrets. They put together a skilled team of geologists, archaeologists, and researchers who were all focused on finding the truth about the wall. This team brought advanced tools like ground-penetrating radar, equipment to test magnetic properties, and tools for collecting tiny soil samples to study. The first big discovery happened by surprise. When they tested the magnetic properties of the granite blocks, they found something amazing. The stones had a strange magnetic pull that didn't match normal granite. In fact, magnets could stick upright to the wall's surface, which shocked the scientists and got people talking. The ground-penetrating radar uncovered even more surprising details. The wall didn't stop where it looked like it ended. It went about 15 feet underground. Even more interesting, there was a completely flat base beneath it, showing that someone had carefully planned and built the structure. It wasn't just a natural formation. Dr. Semir Osmanagic, a renowned researcher known for investigating complex archaeological sites, traveled from Bosnia to personally examine the wall. His knowledge brought a worldwide view to the discovery in Montana. After studying the wall closely, he came up with a bold idea. The wall might have been built over 11,700 years ago, before the last ice age. He also calculated that the heaviest stone, weighing an incredible 91 tons, showed the builders had technology way ahead of what we think prehistoric people could have used. Moving and placing such massive stones with such precision suggested an advanced civilization with engineering skills that challenge what we know about ancient history. The wall's exact alignment with the winter solstice made it even more fascinating. Many ancient cultures built structures that lined up with events in the sky, like the sun or stars. They used these for navigation, spiritual reasons, or tracking time. This careful alignment showed that the builders had impressive knowledge of math and astronomy. scientists tested soil samples from different spots around the wall, hoping to find clues about how it was built, who might have worked on it, or what the environment was like back then. They also planned to use LiDAR technology, a special scanning tool that makes detailed three-dimensional maps. This would help them look at the wall in ways they couldn't with just their eyes, revealing hidden details about its design. Every test turned the Sage Wall into more than just a pile of stones.
So we've done our first sort of quick initial pass through of the wall.
It became an exciting archaeological puzzle. The researchers weren't just trying to figure out if the wall was natural or made by humans. They wanted to uncover the amazing story of the people who might have built it. As the research continued, one thing became clear. The Sage Wall wasn't just a natural structure. It stood as a silent witness to a prehistoric world, holding secrets waiting to be discovered. As scientists dug deeper into the mystery, they realized the location of the Sage Wall was a big part of the story. This spot was not just a random place. It seemed carefully chosen and held secrets that went far beyond the stone wall itself. Geographical and historical context. Hidden in the mountains of Montana, this old structure was built in a place where both the land's natural history and the paths of early people came together. It is a spot that would excite any researcher. During the last Ice Age, North America looked dramatically different. During the Ice Age, two giant sheets of ice, the Cordilleran and Laurentide, covered the land, shaping the landscape in incredible ways. The Sage Wall was not built by chance. It stood right in the middle of these two massive ice sheets, marking an important pathway for people moving through the area. This region was more than just a piece of land. It was like a vital road for survival. Near the wall, three major rivers came together, each flowing toward different oceans.
It's honestly pretty much dead straight until right there towards the end of the wall.
These rivers were more than water sources. They acted like ancient highways, bringing life, supporting animals, and helping people move from one place to another. The land around the wall was also rich in valuable minerals. The area even held Montana's largest quartz crystal, which could have been useful to ancient communities. Quartz might have been used for making tools, in spiritual rituals, or even for trading with others. The wall's position lined up with the ancient land bridge that once connected Asia and North America. Back then, sea levels were much lower, and this bridge let early humans travel between continents. It was not just a path, but a critical route for survival. Experts think that the ancestors of Native Americans used these Ice Age routes, carefully finding their way between the glaciers. The location of the Sage Wall suggests it served as a landmark, a safe resting spot, or even a lookout for these migrating groups. The land around the Sage Wall went through some wild changes in the past. Huge floods, known as the Missoula floods, once tore through the area. These floods moved at unbelievable speeds and reached heights of around 400 feet. They were so powerful that they could completely change the landscape in a matter of moments.
It can completely change the landscape like that. So that's what I think we're looking at.
Which makes the wall's survival even more amazing. The climate back then played a big role in shaping the land and the lives of the people who lived there. The glaciers, rivers, and mountains all worked together to create an environment where early humans could survive. Every part of the land, from the river valleys to the mountain paths, depended on a delicate balance of nature. Surrounding archaeological sites, Montana's wilderness held more than just the Sage Wall. It was like a secret museum filled with prehistoric mysteries waiting to be found. Hidden in the remote mountains, a collection of ancient sites started to reveal a story that was much more detailed than anyone had ever imagined. The Tizer Dolmen stood like a guardian of this ancient land. It was so deep in the wilderness that cell phones could not get a signal in its rocky surroundings. This massive stone structure became a key focus for researchers trying to uncover the secrets of the area's ancient history. Unlike ordinary rock formations, the dolmen was made up of huge flat stones arranged carefully, almost like a stone table, making it clear that it was not a natural accident. Dr. Semir Osmanagic noticed something very unusual about how the dolmen was built. Granite usually breaks in flat horizontal layers, but these stones had broken vertically. This strange detail made him think humans had shaped the rocks on purpose. The large stone on top, resting perfectly on upright stones, seemed far too precise to have happened by chance. Michael Collins, a researcher who studies ancient sites, found more interesting details around the dolmen. There were strange holes, straight marks, and unique knobs carved into the stones. One fascinating feature was a special knob at the base of the structure that appeared to keep it balanced. Without that knob, the whole formation might have fallen apart. The website montanamegaliths.com became an online collection of these mysterious sites. Researcher Julie Ryder put together a huge collection of photos that showed different megalithic structures. One of the most interesting spots she found was the pipestone walls, a set of perfectly arranged stone formations that didn't make sense with the usual understanding of geology. Each site had similar features. The stones had strange markings, deep cup-shaped holes, smooth channels, and detailed surfaces that seemed to hint at advanced prehistoric building techniques. These weren't just random rocks. They looked like carefully made structures, showing that the people who built them had skills we hadn't expected from ancient times. The land around these sites told an even bigger story. These places weren't just one-off monuments, they seemed to be part of a bigger network. The way they were built, the similarities in design, and the shared building methods suggested that different cultures might have shared ideas and technology in ways that we didn't think were possible. Geology experts couldn't agree on what was going on. Were these natural rock formations shaped by millions of years of weathering, or did they come from an advanced ancient civilization with skills far ahead of what we know? As researchers kept digging deeper, one thing became clear. Montana's wilderness wasn't just a natural landscape, it was like a living museum full of ancient secrets, waiting for the right people to discover its hidden truths. As the strange archaeological sites kept puzzling researchers, the Sage Wall became the center of a big scientific debate. It stood quietly, watching as people argued whether the wall was formed naturally or if it was made by an advanced prehistoric civilization. Competing explanations. The Sage Wall went from being an interesting discovery to a battleground of different scientific ideas. Two very different explanations came up, each trying to explain how the wall came to be. Timothy Alberino, an explorer and filmmaker, supported the idea that the wall formed naturally. He pointed out the vertical cracks in the stone that seemed to follow a regular pattern, from the bottom to the top of the wall. Geologists believed that the area's history of strong earthquakes and volcanic activity might have caused the wall's unusual shape. They thought natural forces like rock breaking, erosion, and minerals could have created formations that looked like they were made by humans. Dr. Stuart Parker gave more ideas about the wall's surface. He suggested that the strange bumps on the stones could have happened because softer parts of the rock wore down faster, leaving harder sections to stick out, which made the wall look like it was purposely made. The idea that humans built the wall had big problems. The biggest one was that there were no signs of human life around the site. No tools, pottery, or anything made by people were found, which made it hard to believe humans built the wall. Experts in building structures also pointed out that if humans had made the wall, they would have arranged the stones in a way to make it stronger. The stones, however, were too neatly stacked, which didn't seem like a human design. But the natural explanation couldn't explain certain distinguishing factors. The wall's precise alignment, the way the stones fit together perfectly, and its strange magnetic properties made it hard to explain using simple geological ideas. This debate raised a big scientific question. How could researchers prove for sure where the wall came from? Each theory had strong evidence, but there were still many uncertainties. Geologists had different ideas about how the wall might have formed. Another idea was that complex mineral crystallization might have shaped the stones in unusual ways. The Sage Wall became more than just a physical structure. It became a symbol for scientists trying to push the boundaries of what we know about Earth's history and the forces that shape it. Researchers in Montana continued to collect data, hoping to find more answers. The scientific community remained divided. Some scientists believed the wall was simply the result of natural forces, while others thought it might suggest that prehistoric humans had technological abilities we don't fully understand. Whether it was the result of natural forces or ancient engineering, the Sage Wall reminded everyone that our knowledge of Earth's history is still incomplete. The mystery continued, sparking more research, challenging old assumptions, and promising discoveries that might one day unlock the full story of the Sage Wall. After looking at the different ideas about how the Sage Wall was built, we now turn our focus to another amazing example of ancient stonework, the fortress at Sacsayhuaman. Let's dive into its history and the lasting impact of this Inca wonder. The ancient fortress of Sacsayhuaman. Sacsayhuaman is a fortress perched on a steep hill overlooking the city of Cusco, Peru. It is famous for its huge stone walls and amazing views of the valley. This fortress has amazed historians and archaeologists for centuries. It's not just an old building, it represents the strength and cleverness of the Inca people. The history of Sacsayhuaman goes back to around the year 900 CE, but the most famous construction happened during the reign of Pachacuti, the 9th emperor of the Inca Empire. Pachacuti is known for turning the Inca from a small group into one of the largest and most powerful empires in South America. In Inca history, Pachacuti's son, Tupac Inca, called the city of Cusco the Lion City, with Sacsayhuaman as the head of the city. The Inca built the fortress on a high plateau to the north of Cusco, a perfect spot for both defense and ceremonies. The Inca were skilled at dry stone construction, meaning they didn't use any mortar to hold the stones together. Instead, they carefully cut and shaped the stones to fit perfectly with one another. Some of the largest stones at Sacsayhuaman weigh several tons, and some blocks are as heavy as 200 tons. The way the stones were cut and fit together is so precise that even today, it's hard to understand how such massive stones were moved and placed without modern tools. Building the Sacsayhuaman fortress was an enormous task that required thousands of workers. Pedro Chiesa de Leon, a Spanish writer who visited Sacsayhuaman in 1553, described the huge team that worked on it. He said the Inca Empire used about 20,000 men to quarry, move and shape the stones. These workers were well organized, with each group handling specific jobs like cutting stones, preparing foundations, and moving materials. The stonework at Sacsayhuaman is amazing. The stones fit so perfectly together that not even a piece of paper can slip between them. This careful craftsmanship helped the walls survive many strong earthquakes that would have destroyed weaker buildings. The walls lean inward, creating a sloping effect that makes the structure even stronger. This design shows how smart the Inca were when it came to engineering and building. The fortress has 3 big terrace walls that stretch for almost 400 meters. These walls were made with huge limestone blocks brought from a quarry about 35 kilometers away. The stones were shaped, then moved up the hill using ramps and log systems. Even though these stones were massive and heavy, the Inca managed to fit them so well that there were no visible gaps between them. Sacsayhuaman also had a defensive purpose. The Inca were great at warfare, and the fortress was built to protect Cusco from invaders. Its location, high above the valley, gave a clear view of the area, making it easy to spot any approaching threats. The walls were so strong that they could withstand attacks from weapons and even cannons. Despite the fortress's strength and size, it was damaged during the Spanish conquest in the 16th century. When the Spanish came to Cusco, they took apart much of the fortress to use the stones for their own buildings. Many of the smooth, well-shaped stones were removed and used to build Spanish structures. Today, most of the original fortress is gone, but the parts that are still standing show how amazing the Incas' engineering was. In the 20th century, archaeologists found more ruins around the Sacsayhuaman site. These discoveries suggest that the site was built on earlier buildings from the Quilque period, which came before the Inca. It's not clear what these earlier buildings were for, but they might have been used for ceremonies or rituals, just like the later Inca structures. The mystery of how the Inca moved and fit such huge stones with such accuracy is still unsolved. Some modern experts, like architect and explorer Vince Lee, think the Inca might have carved the stones first, then used ramps and logs to move them into place. Even though many experiments have tried to copy their methods, no one has been able to fully match the Incas' skill at moving these giant stones. Sacsayhuaman, like the Sage Wall, still amazes people today. The precision, strength, and size of the fortress remind us of the incredible achievements of the Inca Empire. As time goes on and new technology develops, the mystery of these ancient wonders only grows, inviting future generations to keep exploring and learning more about the fascinating world of ancient civilizations. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.